doing dishes, and I caught myself watching reaction videos, essentially. Like I'm watching this channel called the Anti-Bot. Usually, honestly, I really enjoy the content. I really enjoy the entertainment. And I was thinking about it, and the essence of the video doesn't matter, because what I recognize is that I'm watching a video of someone watching a video about someone's speaking their opinion on a certain subject. And I can understand how that can be justifiable as, oh, I'm just keeping myself informed as to how other people think, so that way I can kind of understand, I guess, how I think. But then I realized I'm watching someone watch someone. I'm watching someone watch someone and talk about them, so that way I can form thoughts in my mind based on the opinions of the people that I watched, who are doing the watching themselves, or the reactors, I guess. I find it very interesting that, like, why do I feel the urge or the need to even watch these things? What is the impetus? What is the reason? It's entertaining me, yes, but it's not edifying me. It's not educating me. It's really, I'm just consuming the opinions of others. And they're not even really necessarily talking about big subjects. I don't know. Do we even have to always talk about big subjects all the time? The memento mori. Do we always have to think about the fact that our lives are so short? Do we always have to talk about the big questions? Why are we here? Who are we? I don't know. Is philosophy itself an attempt at escapism and an attempt for us to control the chaos of our lives? Because I think eventually you start to recognize that we're not in control of our lives. We're not in control of what happens in the universe. We're not in control of the chaos. So we find things in life that we feel like we can control. And that's where different philosophies a lot of times come in. Stoicism, it's about kind of controlling your reactions to the situation. Hedonism is about giving in to impulse. Utilitarianism is about having control, so that way you can create the greatest good, so that way you can justify your own existence. And same thing like Buddhism. It's about, controlling yourself, so that way you can reach, nirvana, so you can break out of the wheel of samsara. Stoicism, it's about controlling your emotions, so that way they don't control you. We try to take so much of the things in our lives and control them because we're scared of the immense chaos that is life. We're scared that one day we won't be the person who is making decisions for us. We're afraid of being a puppet in someone else's game. And that is something, it's a deep-seated insecurity that I think has happened ever since the advent of civilization. Ever since we had cities and people and leaders and authority, we have this fear of a lack of control of ourselves. So we turn to philosophy, we turn to religion, we turn to politics, we turn to these systems of self-control, because that's what we feel will make us happy. That's what we feel will bring us happiness and security. But in reality, all it does is give a temporary sensation of being the king of your own life, Like as I was saying, I was watching that video of someone watching a video and reacting to it and talking about it. And it gives me a sense of control that, like, oh yeah, I can form my own opinions about this thing. I can understand what's going on. And I feel like I'm informed. And that gives me control in life, because when you have information, and knowledge is power. So we spend a lot of our time pursuing different types of escapism. We pursue entertainment. We pursue art. We pursue philosophy. We pursue the face of God. But all for what? To calm the insecurity within ourselves that we don't want to take the time to listen to. We don't want to spend the time to listen to the fact that we don't know where we are, who we are, where we're going in this ocean of chaos, and that we don't actually have control. We're afraid of the fact that what's actually happening in our lives is not the consciousness within us controlling our bodies, but our bodies are doing things on its own, and our consciousness is merely observing it. And I feel like that is actually a horrifying thought to a lot of people. Because when you realize that there is no free will, you have this sensation of, well, I should just give up. I should stop doing anything. But honestly, you can't. No matter what. You are fated to do things. No matter what. The only thing we can do, really, which itself is a mechanism of control, is acceptance. Another way that we try to control the insecurity within us is to accept the fact that this world is unpredictable, and we can only kind of deal with the moment as it comes. But then again, that itself is an escapism. Philosophy, religion, all these things that we use to try to understand our world is less about actually trying to understand the world and more quiet the part of us that knows that we are one day going to die, and that we have been told that our lives have to have meaning, that we need to be somebody, that we need to be the king of our own lives, that we need to be someone that lasts in the history books. But honestly, we're all going to be forgotten. Maybe some kings and queens and some presidents and a few people that invent things are going to be remembered in a few hundred years, but we're going to be forgotten. And that scares us very deeply. So we spend all our time on social media, posting things, reacting to things, giving our opinions of what's happening on the earth. Because we feel like if we just let our voice be heard just a little bit, maybe we can have a semblance of immortality. We can carry on beyond the shortness of our own lives if we can talk about something. We can control the uncontrollable if we just take the time to post something online, to put our opinion out there. Of course, it needs to be on Twitter. Everybody needs to know what my opinion is of this thing. We have gotten to a point in our society where we're obsessed with the beliefs of others and our own beliefs. We have become possessed by the compulsion to say, the compulsion to constantly make ourselves known and perceived. Because in this world with the internet, if you're not online, you're not alive, almost. That's what the perception is. When I deleted my Facebook account, I pretty much lost all my friends. Because no one, actually really lives in real life anymore. We all live vicariously through Facebook, through Twitter, through TikTok. We're constantly consuming and watching other people do dishes and talk online. We're constantly, and I'm not saying that one thing is good or bad. I don't believe that there is such a thing as good or bad. I'm just saying that we need to recognize what's happening to us. We are being put into a path that we did not choose. And that's another thing that scares us, is that the choices of others control our destiny. And a lot of times our own choices have little to do with our destiny in the long run. Because honestly, Trump's decisions have a lot more impact on my life than my own. The price of my food going up or down has more to do with the decision of somebody that owns a farm than me, you know. Sure I can go buy, cheap groceries at another place and vote with my dollar as much as I want. But then again, I am choosing between choices that were decided for me. I don't believe in the general term good or bad because honestly, most people don't even have a system of values. They don't understand how to value things or to understand what value itself is. So I try to stay away from good or bad. I use it as a way to communicate with people easier, but I don't believe in good or bad. Because good and bad are all presuppositions of the laws that you create for yourself. What is good or bad for one person is good for another. Evil people do evil not because it's evil, but because for them it is good. The greatest evil is the good that believes itself to be absolutely good, to quote Hegel. A lot of times when we're trying to evaluate good or evil, we don't actually think about the harm or the effect of our actions. We think of it in terms, at least in the Western society, in the very heavily Christian influenced society, we think of it in terms of sin. We think of good or bad as, did you break a rule? You didn't break a rule, therefore you're good. But you broke a rule, now you're bad. That's not how it works. That's not how real life works. But we've deluded ourselves because we've had all these people that we put on pedestals, and there's people that say, I've talked to God, and then we're just like, okay, so what'd he say? But it's like, first of all, question that person. It's like, first of all, you're probably insane. Secondly, prove it. Most of these people that say that they talk to God can't prove it. But then they still say, well, I might not be able to do it right now, but God said that what you're doing is bad, and that here's some rules of things that we should and shouldn't do, and if you do these things, you are a bad person. You're going to be punished. See, that's the main thing. Good and evil has very little to do with the actual effects of the action. It has more to do with the squashing of dissent, the punishing of people, so that way you can create a conformist society. I like Jesus. Jesus is awesome. I think Jesus is a great man. Was he the Son of God? Just like all of us. We're all the sons of God. And even Jesus said that. Unfortunately, I don't believe in the religion that came after him that Paul invented. That Peter, Paul, and his disciples created. Jesus never said, I'm creating a religion. You guys need to do everything I say, and here's a list of rules. He never said any of that. He said, I'm a Jewish guy who thinks that we're all the sons of God. Let's treat each other better, and let's stop, hurting each other. That's essentially what Jesus was. And then people were like, oh my God, and they followed him. Literally, oh my God, and they followed him everywhere. Then they eventually killed him because he was someone that was dangerous for the political climate. Because when people realize that there is no actual king, there is no one higher than you and no one below you, that we are all equal, you realize the power structures that we have are illegitimate. Especially back then, when they were mostly by divine mandate. I am the Pharaoh because I am the son, I am Horus incarnate, I am the son of Ra. That is essentially where religion comes from, the religious kingdom comes from. Oh, yeah, I've read the Bible multiple times. My dad was a pastor and an early church history buff, so I know a little bit. But I have read the Bible multiple times. I find it a very fascinating text. Great book of mythology. And that's the biggest problem, is that people take mythology as true. Or that they believe every conclusion from it. It's like, no. Just because someone said something a few thousand years ago doesn't mean that they were right. Just because something is ancient doesn't make it right. Just because something is supposedly handed down to us from the hand of God itself doesn't make it make sense, honestly. If you read the Bible, a lot of it is very contradictory because religion changes throughout time. And the Bible is not a book. It's a library of books that were retranslated, re-edited, and squished down into one book for people, honestly, very recently. What is it? Around the 15th century, we got it translated from Latin. What was it? 14th century. I can't remember when Tyndale was. And Martin Luther. Yeah, but before that, it was in Latin. So no one could read the Bible. No one really knew the Bible. Most of the doctrines and things that came from the Bible came from the authorities. They came from the people that we trusted that said that they knew the right way. The opinions of others, just like I was talking about earlier in how I was watching someone watch someone and react to their video. You know, reaction videos are the same thing as going to a preacher, because you're getting the opinion of someone else's opinion. Because the Bible itself is an opinion. It's the opinion on certain historical facts, and a lot of it's made up. You know, just like all mythology. The Gospels are testimony of the people that lived with Jesus and wrote down his teachings. Possibly. Possibly. See, that's the thing. We take these things as given. But people lie constantly. There's tons of cults that just come out of nowhere that have no basis in reality other than the belief in those realities. Just like another one of Hegel's quotes, if I remember correctly, is, "The king is not a king because he is a king. The king is a king because the people think he is a king." If a bunch of people think this person is the leader, that person becomes the leader. But the minute that our belief disintegrates about that person, the minute that their reputation is destroyed, the minute that we recognize this is just a small man just like the rest of us, that's when we realize that person is not a king. And we are disillusioned by their authority, and then we stop listening to them. What is made up? Lots of stuff. If you look at pretty much the miracles, I'm going to say it right there. The miracles are made up. Is it a fact? Then how do you know any historical people existed? There are certain things that did happen. But just, okay, so like Troy. Troy happened. The Battle of Troy. Troy was a real city, and it did fall. There was a war. There were certain generals and certain kings and all that stuff. But I don't think that the Iliad is an exact, I don't think that, was it Aphrodite, Diana, and Hera tossed a golden, were tossed a golden apple by Electra, or not Electra, Discordia. Eris, that was her name. I don't think that the reason that the Trojan War started was because of three goddesses coming to Paris and telling him that, hey, decide who's the most beautiful woman. Any more than I believe that the prophet Elijah was taken up in a fiery tornado and taken up with God, and that he parted a river by waving his cloak over it. I don't believe that. I also don't believe that there was a Cyclops that named, I can't forget the Cyclops name, but I don't believe that there was a Cyclops, and I don't believe that Odysseus actually stabbed a Cyclops in the eye and said, "My name is Nemo." I don't think any of that happened. I think it's an embellishment of a story. That's where most of myths come from. They're embellishments of things that happened. Like there's people that have gone fishing and they're like, "Yeah, I caught a fish that was that big." It happens all the time. People embellish their stories. But again, these are opinions of opinions. These supposed historical facts usually aren't written down at the time they happen. They are oral traditions that mutate over a few hundred years, and then eventually they are written down. And then from there, they are used for certain political purposes. Because propaganda is not a new thing. The ancient Egyptians have been using propaganda, and pretty much since the invention of writing has happened, we have had propaganda. If you look at the temple walls, a lot of times they have stuff about the king or the stelas that mark the triumphant victories. A lot of times those victories aren't even real. It's just something it's the news they put out for the people to make the people think that the king was awesome. It happens all the time. It's been happening for thousands of years. You think people's memories change? For a fact, they do. People's memories do change. I have a prime example. Here's an example of a false memory. So when I was a kid, we lived near these people that had two horses, or a horse and a pony. One day, my mom was driving my brother home from work, and apparently one of our neighbor had tied the horse's lead to a chair, and then the horse took off running, or the pony took off running down the street dragging the chair. And they thought it was funny, so they immediately told me. I went the next day and told my dad about that incident because I thought it was hilarious. 2 years later, my dad tells me this story about how he was driving down the road and saw a pony dragging the chair with a chain. I was like, no, Pop, that didn't happen. That never happened. I told you that story about two other people, Mom and Elijah, telling me that story. False memories happen all the time. It's very basic psychology. How old was I? I think it's like 13. But the thing is, memories cannot be trusted. And I have myself many times thought that I've done something or said something and haven't done it. Jesus, well, I mean, what do you mean by give some credit to Jesus? Jesus had some great sayings. So does Buddha. So does Nietzsche. So does Jung. So does, what's that guy's name that wrote the Theologia Tragicus? Whatever his fucking name. So is Kant. So does Hegel. Many people have said many good things. That doesn't mean that we should follow every single word that they say, or follow the people that claim like, oh, I know Jesus personally. Yeah, I know exactly what he means. No, make your own opinion. Make your own opinion. But even then, we have to be aware that our opinions, even when we form them for ourselves, are influenced by the stimulus and the upbringing that we have had. The upbringing in the church, the upbringing in the heavily Christianized culture, the upbringing in, well, I guess in our culture. In America, we have heavily Christianized culture. Different parts of the world, we have different influences, different things to make that form our opinions for us beforehand and then make us think, oh yeah, that's what I believe, and I chose that for myself. Most of our opinions have not been chosen for ourselves. They were out there already, and then we chose to say, oh yeah, I put this identity as my own. Anyways, I gotta get going to work. Thank you all for listening to me rant, but just be aware that our thoughts, our opinions, our words, our actions are under the influence of everything in our lives. What we believe, what other people believe about us, what the culture is around us, form our own beliefs and our reaction to those beliefs. We are not in full control of ourselves. We are particles bouncing around, reacting to different stimuli constantly. And within that awareness of the lack of free will, we gain free will. Because when you recognize that you have no free will, you can see what is influencing you. And then you can begin to truly choose. So, peace out, y'all. Choose for yourself. Be a heretic.